you mentioned, you played at Notre Dame. You experienced the national championship game, and they made it back there this past year. So before we look forward and we hit on some of the big off-season topics, I did want to reflect on the two teams that played for a national championship. Notre Dame's run to that game, why Marcus Freeman's the right coach for this program, like why he got extended, but why it worked, like why he's built the program to where it can contend for national championships. But also just, I'm sure you were very proud of like that particular team weathering so many injuries and doing what they needed to do to get to that final game.
Yeah, that is really what I kept coming back to. Like as an alum, as someone that's been a fan since I knew how to form words, I was so proud watching the way that this team battled. I routinely get sent, because it's been turned into so many memes and things used on Instagram, that Jeremiah Love run from the Penn State game where he shirks off 4 or 5 tacklers down by the goal line was really just emblematic of sort of how that team battled both in that game in the micro, but in the back half of the season in the macro, where they just kept losing wave after wave of guy that was pivotal to that team and living like that next man up stuff. It looks great on a poster in a locker room. And it looks great sounds great when the coach brings it up at the front of the room. It's really hard to actually have go out and execute. Like, most teams just aren't that deep. And for Notre Dame in my lifetime, I think that was one of the biggest areas that has shown through for Marcus Freeman. One of the biggest improvements that he's helped continue to build off of what Brian Kelly did in the back half of his tenure is Notre Dame recruiting and developing championship depth, having the amount of freshmen, sophomores ready to go and ready to play meaningful minutes for this team, so that when it got to those time periods, you had guys that were ready to step up in those spots. So yes, pride was overwhelmingly the answer. They kept coming back to battle, and that leads to your point about Marcus Freeman and his fit for the job there, because it's the old remember the Titans line, attitude reflects leadership. Like, that is a top-down mandate and a directive, and to not only say those words, to put it on the walls, but to then have the players actually go out there and not only believe it, but work every day to make it so. Like, belief is nothing without action. And so to have everyone that bought in a day and age where so many people have an eye on the portal, if I can get out, if I'm in a bad situation, for a lot of these guys to choose to say Notre Dame was one of the few teams that didn't have portal defections during the college football playoff season, during that time when the window was open during the playoff. All of those things are a testament to, their buy-in to Marcus Freeman. And what we've seen from him is it's really hard to find a ton of examples of someone having their first job be one of the marquee jobs and walk into a situation where it's not a rebuild. Brian Kelly left this program in a really good place when he left for LSU. And so you were asked to come in and maintain and then add on to get over that national championship lid that's existed on Notre Dame for the better part of the last 3-4 decades, and to embrace that challenge, to come in and to get better at things along the way, to see him become one of the most aggressive fourth down coaches in college football last year, to see the development of Notre Dame's defense to the point where I remember when he was coaching at Cincinnati still, and they came to South Bend and Notre Dame, they beat Notre Dame. And I looked on the field that game and I said, Cincinnati's got better cornerback play than Notre Dame in this game. Like, you had Sauce Gardner, you had Kobe Bryant on that team, you had legitimate NFL dudes. And now you fast forward a few years later, and that's one of the biggest areas of change that you've seen in Notre Dame's roster. Benjamin Morrison finishes up as maybe the most talented cornerback in my Notre Dame lifetime when healthy on the field. Leonard Moore comes in and is an absolute stud and a staple as a freshman when he goes down. And so little things like that where you're seeing his imprint on the program already through the course of 3 years, and clear areas where he's improved, not just as a leader that we always knew he had the juice for. I covered Marcus Freeman when he was at Cincinnati back in 2017, and we all walked out of that coaches meeting and said, that guy's a future head coach. Didn't know it was going to be for my team eventually, but everyone could kind of see the writing on the wall there. And so for him to already bring that to the table, but then go in and show clear improvement over that time period, made the contract extension a no-brainer for him and made him the right leader for this program now and going forward.
Well, and I think just to underscore a couple points, because I was reflecting on them in the lead up to that championship game, it's risky to hire someone with no head coaching experience for that job at that moment. Like you said, where the question that you're posing to that coach is, can you take this very good program and make it one that can play for a national championship? And you'd hire someone who hasn't been there very long, and what hasn't been a head coach before. So that was risky, high risk, high reward. Obviously, it paid off. And I was able to catch up with Jack Swarbrick, who made that hire around that championship run, same as you were talking about, like the pride in the way that that team plays and the way that that roster was built. And I think just watching Marcus grow as a leader over these years and the way he's made hires, the way he's coached the team. You mentioned the fourth downs, all of the different pieces that make a head coach one of the best in college football right now. I think you see all of that with him. And then also following a guy who left, and basically one of the first things he said was, I left because this other place can win national championships. And that implies that Notre Dame couldn't. And that bothered people.
Listen, I understand that the mounting pile of evidence had suggested that was the case, though. And you look at what LSU had done. Like, again, as much as I was maybe the fan part of me and the alum part of me wounded by that notion when Brian Kelly left, when I looked at it pragmatically as an analyst, I said the last three coaches that have gone to LSU have won national championships. Like, it is fertile ground down there to go and do this. And so, yes, it was a big swing. It was a big gamble. And now you mentioned Jack Swarbrick handing the baton to Pete Bavacqua, who comes in and takes over. And the way that all three of those forces in this combined with Marcus Freeman, and I think this is the important part about why the extension, you're not just paying for what's happened, but what's to come, is they've really leaned in. You mentioned the hires to what's coming. There aren't complaints about the direction of the sport. There aren't complaints about an eye on the portal. It's all right. Hey, our big time, football ops, pseudo GM player personnel guy gets hired away by SC. We're going to go to the NFL and hire a guy to come in and be our GM here. We're going to reorg this entire thing and lean into these parts of it. Kurt Cignetti's out here accusing Notre Dame of having a $40 million roster. I get down on my knees every night and I beg God to send me this and make it true. I don't know if it is. I have no insider information on that. I know that, listen, they're not afraid to come to the table and play ball. They have made it very clear in their actions publicly that Notre Dame is serious about embracing the parts of the sport that are changing and are different right now in terms of how you structure and build rosters and the resources it takes to do that. I don't know if we're spending $40 million on the roster, but I pray to God that becomes true. I would be the happiest boy in camp.
So you're not the one bankrolling that? You're not just spending, $10 million a year here?
Nicole, let me tell you what, the amount of time spent by me, guys I played with, and I think anyone that has an alma mater they truly care about, fantasizing about what I would do if I all of a sudden came into a life-changing sum of money and how quickly I would become the number one booster for my program here. You'd see me at everything. I'd be smiling, $100 handshakes left and right here. You can rest assured, Notre Dame, if I ever hit the lottery, I promise we are going to go out here and make the Bryce Underwood exercise from this offseason look like child's play.